Welcome, everyone, to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner. This is PRT. Join us in the real reality, and this is spooky. Spooky Vision. We recorded this in Spooky Vision.
Spooky Vision.
And that's what's happening. October. You want to say hello, Tony, Richard, Anthony?
What's up, everybody? Hope you're enjoying the full Technicolor Spooky Vision audio.
Yeah, happy Halloween and such.
Yeah, like, that sounds so enthusiastic. Happy Halloween and such.
Yes.
He says it like Charlie Brown. He's so unenthused. Like, yeah, it's just whatever.
We're going to have such a scary time
He's
now.
up in Canada, just angry.
Get ready for the spookies to come invade your body.
He's
People
already
got their
dealing
Halloween
with it.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think Richard's already dealing with a parasitic story from his favorite fast food chain up in Canada, Tim Hortons.
It does give you parasites, especially when you hang out in that dumpster for the day-old donuts.
Tim Hortons.
Delicious. What is it they say about the coffee?
Oh, yeah. Do Canadians really know what's in their coffee?
Oh, my gosh. That's so weird.
I know.
You know, who
mocking you with satanic mockery with the truth.
It's so funny because it's like they call it coffee at all.
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. I call it Caw-Doffy.
I call it what it is, plastic.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what was it y'all were talking about? Everybody has credit cards worth of plastic a day in their... What were you saying?
A week, yeah.
Yeah, a
Put
week,
a credit card, ingest a credit card's worth of plastic a week.
Oh, my gosh. This is crazy. So here we are in the middle of the night. We're recording, and this is a Saturday edition of Paranormal Roundtable because we decided that we were going to do a show every day of the week in October, and we've kept our word. And so we start out on Monday. We have the the call-in show. The anybody can call in. Or not call in, but you can jump on the live stream and you can talk and tell your encounters. And that's on Monday. That's my favorite show. Tuesday, yeah, you're the co-host there. And then Tuesday,
okay.
What do you mean? Oh, okay.
You are.
You are.
All the more reason for it to be my favorite.
That's why it's your favorite. Yeah. So you got me and Dick Richards here. We co-host together on Mondays. And then Tuesday, we have the Patreon, which is always going to be fire because we absolutely...
Knock those out of the park.
Yeah, if you're going to pay, we're going to give you the best of the best. And not only is it the best of the best, but then you get a swag bag. And it is a $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 tier. I would go with the 50. It's the best deal. And it is a deliciousness of wonderfulness. And you get... cool merchandise, hoodie, shirt, hat, all kinds of stuff, stickers, books, and it all comes courtesy of us to you, straight to your door. And then you get an extra show every Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we're skipping Wednesday. Wednesday is just like Sunday. So you have Sunday and Wednesday, which are retelling people's encounters live. And it's a very interactive and fun show. Thursday, we have the show. And it is the members only. It's a pre-record just like Tuesday, but it's members only on YouTube. It's $5 and you get it for the whole month. And you get an extra show every Thursday. So it is an incredible deal. And we have built quite the library on Patreon and on the members shows. So check it out. Join, sign up, and get going. Members only, $5 for the month, and you get 4 shows. Patreon, a minimum of $10, and you get 4 shows, and you get a swag bag. Now, remember, the $10 swag bag is an autographed book from one of many different authors. You'll get an autographed book. You'll get stickers and a keychain. And it's cool. It's a pretty good deal. But it's much better if you upgrade to $20, $30, $40, $50 tier because everything you get more. You just get more and more. So if I were you, I would move up. On the $20 tier, you get a shirt. On the $30 tier, you get 2 books and a shirt. And then on the $40 tier, you get 2 books, a shirt, a hat, and one of my autographed books. And then on the $50 tier, You get all of that. And if we have the hoodies in stock, you'll get a hoodie.
And
Yeah.
Josh Turner shows up at your house and rubs your feet for an
No,
hour.
we don't do that. That's not. Don't lie to people.
All right.
Be lying.
Gonna get us sued for false advertising.
Exactly. Canadian.
That's a VIP
Jokes.
package.
Jokes.
Now, this is for entertainment purposes only. And so you get the $50 tier, you get both of my autograph books, and you get 2 other autograph books from different authors, and who knows what we're going to send you, just whoever we got in stock. But you'll get the hoodie, you get the hat, you get all the stuff. And then if you sign up for the $30 tier of the Patreon and you do it now while supplies last, you will get one of the wonderful tumblers. And that swag bag comes after 2 months, and then you get one every 6 months after that. So
That is a good deal.
Yeah, you get 2 swag bags in 8 months because we want you to have the updated merchandise, but really we want you to go out and wear it. Wear the hat, wear the hoodie, wear the shirt. Let people know. Take the tumbler. Use it in public. Get up in the middle of Starbucks and be like, "Dear Diary, I love PRT. I cannot live without it. It is better than anything on earth other than Starbucks."
I did that.
You can lie at the end there if you have to. I'm going to let you do that.
In fact, when
I
I
go
was
into Tim Hortons and just play the live episodes and just crank it as loud as I
Crank
can.
it full blast on a boombox. There
Right.
you go.
I mean, that's what I did when I was getting my diploma from high school. I was like, I want to thank PRT in the future for
The future of PRT, yeah.
for having me on.
It goes God, Christ, and the Holy Spirit. Of course, that's the Trinity, right? So that has to be number 1. Then after that, then it is PRT. And then I am there, kind of like Kim Jong-un. I'm in your house. My ultimate goal to be in a picture of me in everybody's house waving.
Josh Turner doesn't use the bathroom either.
I don't use the bathroom, and I'm the best at everything. Archery, fishing, animal husbandry, everything you could possibly imagine. I am the best of the best at everything.
He's the best. I've never seen anyone who does better than him.
He's the best around. No one's ever gonna bring him down. So anyway, let's get started on the show here. We've had some fun here. We had a few laughs, all right? And what do you call it in Canada? A goof? You're a goof?
Oh, that's the worst word you can say. That's literally the worst word you can say.
How is that even an insult? You had a Canadian tell me I'm such a goof, and I thought, dude, you're so stupid. What is?
Oh, really? Oh, really? Yeah, it's like a rat and like somebody that like would do nasty things to their own mother and all sorts of like
Okay.
a child.
All wrapped up in goof.
It's all the worst things combined.
Wow.
It's the one word that can get you stabbed in jail in like 5 seconds.
Well, Dick, you're a goober, all right? How do you like that? You big old goober.
You're a goofy goober.
You're a goofy goober.
Any day.
Don't call him a goof. All right, so we're not going to call you the goof. You're not a goof troop. So here's what I got here. So I get a story from a guy named Shannon. And at first, and I'm not going to lie, I thought it was a female. I did, but no, it's a guy. And so this is what happened. He was up in Lincoln, Nebraska. He lives outside of Lincoln. Well, his family has land outside of Lincoln, Nebraska, and they were there visiting. By his own words, he told me, he says, "Man, I had the scariest Scarecrow when I was a child." He's 44 years old now, but when he was a child, he had terror, just absolute terror of his uncle. And his uncle is about 10 years older than his dad. It's like his dad was the youngest, was born later in life, of his parents' lives, whatever. Wasn't supposed to happen. He's like, and my uncle and me, he goes, we were never really that close. I mean, I'm one of 4 kids and he's got 4 kids. And he's like, I'm just there, my uncle. He goes, and so when I told my uncle that something weird had happened to me as a child in his cornfield, he just laughed. He didn't care. He had nothing. He didn't go and say, whoa, let's go check it out, or nothing. He just laughed at me. And every Thanksgiving, he would poke fun at me and tell me, what a goof I was.
Yeah, I was going to say, he sounds like a goof.
He's like, well, you're one of the expendable ones. So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
fine.
Nobody
Oof.
cares. You're so
Thankfully.
So Shannon had some other weird stuff happen to him, but this story in particular was really scary, and it was weird. And he said that when he was a child, he said he was 8 years old, and it was during his birthday party, and they were out at his uncle's farm. He's like, and we were all playing and running around, and we were, he goes, we had 4-wheelers and stuff. And he's like, and we had just had the harvest. So all the corn had been harvested. It was early November. He goes, I was born like first week of November. And he's like, so I was riding a 4-wheeler, and we were riding out into these plowed fields, and there was this scarecrow that my uncle had. It's been in the family forever. He goes, it was my grandfather's. He used to own that farmland. He goes, our farm was a couple miles down the road. And he's like, and I always had fun going and visiting my uncle's farm. He's like, but I never, and he goes, he married a younger woman who had children that were my age. He had one son that was a lot older than us, and he had gone off into the military, and then he was living in Michigan. And so he said, we were living in Nebraska, and there's cornfields as far as the eye can see, especially in that area around Lincoln. And he's like, so I would go there to my uncle's farm, and I had fun. He's like, but one time when I was a kid, I was with, 2 of my step cousins and a couple of their friends, and we were having like this sleepover. And he's like, and I'm walking through the field with my cousin, Jason, and I don't know why. He goes, we started throwing dirt clods at the scarecrow. And he's like, this thing, whatever it was, like made a noise, like it groaned. It was like that. And he said, when it did, we all just stopped, looked at each other, screamed, and ran all in the same direction, which was way, way far from the house. We ran the opposite of the farmhouse. He's like, and then we realized what we did. So we're like, we're going to have to walk back through there. So we walked all the way around, and we gave that scarecrow a wide berth. Now, it wasn't the only scarecrow on the property, but for some reason, he goes, it was the only one that was kind of lifelike. He's like, it was the only one that actually did its job and kept the crows away because it looked like a man. He's like, and I'll never forget, he goes, when I was 11, I walk out there through this field. He goes, I was 10. He's like, I was 10 years old, and my cousin was 11, and we were walking out there, and my female cousin, she says, do you think that scarecrow, just out of the blue, she's like, we're just talking, we're walking through the cornfield, and he's like, now, this is my step cousin, and he goes, and I'm not going to lie, she was a couple years older than me, and she was very attractive, and I met her when I was like 8. It's not like she was, we didn't grow up together up until that point, and I thought, man, she's beautiful, so I was attracted to her. And she's like, what if that scarecrow just got down off of that pike, and just started walking around like a man? Mm-hmm. And he looks at her and he says, why would you say that? And she just was like, I don't know, I just had this weird image. Now think about it, there's something that goes on in your mind that makes you come up with that and say that. And she's just like, I don't know. I was just sitting here.
Like a premonition?
Yeah, like maybe. I don't know what we'd call it. But she was just sitting there and she goes, I don't know. I just thought about what if that happened? She's like, so let's walk out there to it. And he says, I was terrified to do it. He's like, but I didn't want to look weak in front of her. I'm a 10-year-old, almost 11, and she's like 12 going on 13, she's a little bit older than him. And he's like, and I really had a thing for her. I had a crush on her. He's like, and so I just said, oh, okay. So I walked out there with her, and she's like, she gets right up to it, and she's looking up at the scarecrow. And he's like, I reached out and I touched the foot, and it had shoes on, like these moccasins, right? And he's like, and you could feel that it was just like this hay inside of it. And he's like, every year my uncle would go and stuff the scarecrows with hay and so she touched its foot too and said, these are real shoes. Somebody wore these shoes. And he's like, yeah, probably my uncle. It's like your stepdad, And she was like, wow, this thing looks so lifelike. While they were standing there, he goes, I could have swore that I saw movement in my peripheral. She screams and takes off running. And now she's a little bit older, a little bit taller and faster than him. So he takes off running like he does. She just takes off running, and he stands there for a second just watching her run. He hears movement behind him. He doesn't turn around and look to see what it is. And it sounds like straw moving. And he's like, I took off running full blast. And he goes, I still couldn't catch her. She was so far ahead of me. She goes inside, and something must have really happened because she was standing there with her mother, my aunt, and just crying and just screaming, Mom, Mom, the Scarecrow's alive. Her mother is like, knows that she's very distraught. So she starts having a conversation with his uncle. He can't really make out what they're saying. And then he says, okay, kids, let's go. Let's go. So they go and they get in the four-wheeler, 2 different four-wheelers, and they pile in there. And it's one of those that has the thing in the back where you can put stuff and whatever. And so we drive out there. And my uncle tells me, he's like, look, I'm going to tell you right now, there's like a little trailer that they pull. Everybody's in the back of it, right? He's like, we jump out, and there's like 6 kids. We're all in 3 in each one. And we all jump out of the trailer, and he takes us over to the Scarecrow. He's like, this is like September, right? And he says, this thing is not alive. This thing is not real. He's like, I'm so sick of these stories. And he's thinking to himself, well, I only remember one other incident, but apparently there had been multiple incidences with the kids and their friends and different people. He said a couple years later, he's like, we're having Thanksgiving, and the Scarecrow's out in the middle of the field. Everything's been harvested. There's no corn. And he's like, his older cousin comes down from Michigan, who's, quite a bit older than him. And he's like, my cousin Ernie, he says, let's go out there to the Scarecrow where all y'all are so scared, let's go out there and whatever. And he said that none of the kids wanted to go. They were all terrified. But he says, you know what? I got a bunch of Halloween candy left over when my kid went trick-or-treating, and his kid couldn't have it. He could only have like so much of it because his kid was diabetic. He could only eat like very little candy, and it had to be sugarless or something like that. He says, so I let him go trick-or-treating. He has all this candy, but he can't eat it. And so he says, I'll give it to you. And he had like a whole bucket full of it. He's like, but you got to go and you all got to sit at the base of the Scarecrow. He's like, and whoever can sit out there the longest with the Scarecrow will come back and win the candy. He goes, so yeah, so he walks out there with the kids. They all go and they sit out there, with the Scarecrow. And he's like, and there's like several of us out there, and we're all there. He's like, it's Thanksgiving, whatever. And he's like, and then my cousin says, well, see ya. And he goes back inside. He goes, it started getting chilly. He's like, the 2 girls, they're the first ones to get up because they're just cold. And they're just like, this is creepy. It's cold out here. I don't want to sit out here. So they walk back to the house and they leave the boys out there. So he goes, it's me and my 3 cousins, real cousins, right? From my aunt, and then there's my 2 step cousins from my uncle's wife. So we're all out there. He goes, and my brother. And he goes, and eventually my brother, he's kind of a whiny little brat. He's the youngest and whatever. And he's just like, yeah, I don't want to be out here. So he starts hassling me to try to take him and walk him back to the house. I said, no, because if I go back, I don't get to get the bucket of candy. He goes, you're going to have to go back by yourself. He's like, okay, so fine. The kid just sits there. He sits there, and then he starts crying and whining. So one of his step cousins decides to walk him back, and he's a good kid. He goes, that he's probably the best of us. He walks back. He loses his chance. We're out there for a while. He goes, and then I see a flashlight being flashed from across the field, and we're like, oh, okay, it's my cousin Dave, and he's playing around, and he's over there making noise. Going woo, woo, like all this weird, whatever, trying to scare us. And we could see him walking around behind the flashlight, making noise. And then he goes, everybody just kind of puts their head down. And, and about 11 o'clock at night, he's like, I see 2 people coming up from the house. He's like, and this woo and all this other with the light and all that was just, it was shining it in our eyes. It was getting annoying. Parents come out there. He goes, and my uncle tells, Dave, hey, knock it off. Stop doing that. He keeps doing it. Keeps shining the light, and the light just keeps going on and off, and it's really, really bright. He goes, and then my one cousin goes to stand up, and he hits the top of the shoe of the Scarecrow, of the bottom of the shoe of the Scarecrow, scares him, and he takes off running and goes back toward the adults, and then they are talking to him. He sees all three of them, his cousin and the two adults, walking away. He goes, and at this point, there was only three of us left. And he goes, I had, one of my cousins was out there. He was just falling asleep. He didn't care. He goes, this kid's going to win because he's not even awake. He's like, and then all of a sudden he jumps up, like just right after he started thinking about this cousin that was pissing him off. Cousin jumps up and just says, "What was that? Something touched me. Something's on me." And he gets up and he starts like jumping around, acting weird. He's like, and then he looks up and he goes, "Ah!" And he just screams while he's looking at the Scarecrow, and he takes off running. So he goes, "Now it's just me and my cousin Randy. We're just sitting there." He's like, and I'm thinking, this is weird. Like, he goes, everybody is just bailing. He's like, all I got to do is outlast Randy. He goes, but I couldn't stop thinking about this other weird stuff that had happened. Like when my cousin freaked out, and took off running away from this thing. And he's like, and so my cousin looks up at the Scarecrow and he goes, he's like, I keep hearing like breathing. And he tells his cousin, he's like, are you serious? He's like, I don't hear anything. He's like, I keep hearing breathing. You don't hear that? And he goes like, stop breathing for a minute. And so him and his cousin both stop breathing. They hold their breath and then they hear, and it gets louder. And this guy tells me, he's like, I am not joking. He's like, I heard breathing. He's like, and at that time as a kid, he goes, I didn't know what to think. He goes, I'm in my early teens and I am scared. I'm like, I'm 13 years old. I'm scared. He's like, and I look up and I said, do you think it's breathing? And he goes, and as we both stared at it, we saw its chest heave. He goes, I swear to you, I'm not even joking. He goes, it heaved. And he's like, and I told my cousin, I said, let's get out of here. He goes, okay. We'll split the candy. Let's see if we can get, cousin Davey to split the candy with us. He said, and just then the light comes back and it's cousin Dave and he's behind them and he's all like, whoa, making these goofy, like corny noises, And he says, at that point, we're both standing there looking at the Scarecrow and this light is getting closer and closer. Dave has got it on full blast and it's just in their face, in their eyes. And they're just like, dude, this is so annoying. And they're like, obviously, he's a jerk. He's not going to give us the candy. One of us is going to have to, he's not going to let us split it because that's the kind of guy he is. And so his cousin Randy says, okay, you know what, dude? I don't care. I'm out of here, dude. If you want to stay here, he goes, when I get back to the house, I'll turn and wave and let you know that you win. I concede, whatever. Cousin's like 2 years older than him, and he's scared. He's like, so you can imagine. Shannon was like, I was terrified. He's like, but it was a big bucket of candy. And he goes, and my cousin's so full of shit. He's so full of shit. He goes, I don't even know what's true with this guy half the time. This bucket of candy, he says, was from Halloween because his son is diabetic. He goes, and I started thinking about it. I'm like, his kid is a pudgy little, wharf looking, like, I think he called him like a pudgy wharf rat or something like that. But he's like, he's a little fat kid and he's always eating sweets. He's like, he's not diabetic. He just made that up. He was just talking crap. And then he goes, and then on top of it, to make things worse, he's going around making noise and shining this big flashlight in our eyes. He goes, I'm tired of it. And he turns around and he waves and then the light goes out. And he's like, okay, Dave, you can stop. He goes, I won. Obviously, I'm the winner. And whenever this guy, his cousin, hears that he won, he's like, he just kind of looks in the distance and he sees movement and it looks like somebody that put their arm up kind of like, like a thumbs up, right? And he sees him walking around in the field and he's like, and he's wearing all black and he's like thinking, what is this guy trying to scare me? He looks like he's wearing like a Grim Reaper costume. Like he's trying to scare me. And he's like, and right then he goes, my cousin Randy was like halfway to the house, and he turns around and he says, "Run!" He tells me, he screams out to me to run. And he's like, and Shannon's like, I turn and I look at him and I'm like, why? What's going on? And he goes, Randy points. He keeps pointing. And I look up and I see the Scarecrow, and I'm just staring at the Scarecrow because I think that's what it is. He's like, and the Scarecrow turns its head. It turns its head and looks at me. He's like, and the Scarecrow, he's like, mouthed words out of its mouth. It didn't move its mouth, but the sound came from where the mouth would have been. And it says, run. And he's like, I will never forget as long as I live. I turned and I took off running. And I thought, why am I running? And he couldn't figure out why Dave was in the field walking around looking like the Grim Reaper, which was just weird. And he kept shining his flashlight. He goes, I get back to the house and Dave is sitting on the porch swing around the side of the house, and he's laughing. And he's like, what are you guys, you're scared to death. What's going on? He goes, well, you were out in the field, you're scaring us. And he's like, what? And he's like, yeah, you were out in the field. That's you, right? And Dave's like, there's nobody out in the field. I mean, nobody from here. All the adults are accounted for. And then he goes and they get their other cousin who's a little bit older. He's not as old as Dave. He's like several years younger, but he's the oldest behind Dave. And he goes, let's go check it out. So they go and they get in the four-wheeler and they drive out there. They don't see anybody. There's nothing. But they do find a cloak that is just laying there at the foot of the Scarecrow. And they come back and they show him. They're like, what is this what you were scared of? There was a cloak. It was, whatever. And they told him, they said there was a light that kept shining. There was like this light, we thought it was a flashlight. It was a big light. And he says, this cloak is, he goes, it belongs to the other Scarecrow on the far end of the field.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, what, how could it have been? And how did it get up to that Scarecrow? And so he goes, to this day, I don't know how that, what that was. Nobody could give me a good answer. He goes, but I'm looking at Dave and Jerry. Jerry's his other cousin. And not Jerry, I'm sorry, Jared. And Jared and Dave are looking at me and they're just like, what the heck is going on here?
So on top of everything else, the Scarecrow is a dirty thief.
But the point is that, he goes, I look at my cousins and they are just like pale. And Dave gets off of the four-wheeler and he goes, okay, I think we've had enough fun for today. And he goes, yeah, you got your bucket of candy, boy, whatever. And so, yeah, he's like, he goes, this happened years ago. He goes, I'm 34 now. I think I said he was 40, he's 34. He's like, I'm 34 years old now. He goes, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And he's like, I'll never forget it. It was like 20 years ago. He goes, but I remember it. And we never did figure out and that's that farm is like secluded. Like there's nobody out there. Like somebody would have had to walk a long ways, and be out there with a flashlight. And he goes, and none of everybody was accounted for. And all the adults to this day, they always swear up and down. They don't know what that was, what that light was. And they can't figure out how that cloak got down off of that Scarecrow and was moving around. But they found that Scarecrow without the cloak. And it wasn't where it usually was. It was off by the road.
The Scarecrow was?
Yeah, the Scarecrow. Not the one that he was terrified of that moved its head. He goes, to this day, he goes, I still don't know how a Scarecrow can move its head and mouth the words run. He's like, but I did. And I looked back and I saw whatever was in that cloak running toward me. He said for years he had dreams about it. And in one of the dreams he had that was a recurring nightmare, there was this like Grim Reaper skeleton thing that came up out of the ground and would chase him around in the fields, in the cornfields. Like he's running through cornfields and this thing is like a scythe and it's chasing him. And it's swinging at him. And every time it almost gets to him, he wakes up. But yeah, that's his story, There was one other thing that happened to him. He said one of his cousins was staying out there one night after that incident. And they lived in Colorado and they were visiting, and he said that they were telling him years later at a family reunion in Fort Collins or something like that. I think they were having a family reunion, and it was at their place in Colorado. And he said that he goes, I had not, like been out of Nebraska, but maybe once, one other time in my life, when I was playing baseball. And he goes, and so it was cool to go to Colorado and like kind of, go somewhere different, whatever. And he says, I go to hang out with my cousin and we're in the barn. And he goes, and we're doing something we're not supposed to be doing. They were passing around a joint, and he's like, and so we just started opening up about stuff. And my cousin's friend, Kim, who's there, she's from Colorado and she's really pretty. He goes, and I ended up kissing her. He goes, it was like the first time I kissed a girl. He goes, I was a late bloomer and it was like, say I was 16. He's like, and I kissed this girl. He's like, and she was telling me, she's like, hey, are you the one that had the weird thing with the Scarecrow? Because the story had circulated amongst his cousins. And he said, yeah, it was me and some other cousins, whatever. He's like, but I won a big bucket of candy for it. It was like this huge bucket because I had it until the following Halloween, And he said that she said, did you ever talk to your cousin Stacy about what happened to her? So he asked Stacy, he said, what happened to you? She said, well, the following summer, she's like, I came from Colorado to go stay, out there for a little while because I was getting in trouble. I was leaving, sneaking out at home and running around with boys and stuff. And my mom and dad were like, you know what? We're sending you out to the farm with your aunt and uncle. And so she told him a weird story. She was hanging out by the Scarecrow, taking a picture with it. And then she told him, she's like, I have the picture still. Like there's a picture of me and right before something really weird happened. She said, while I'm standing there by the Scarecrow with our cousin Jason, she's like all of a sudden this thing reaches down and touches my shoulders. And nobody believed me. To this day, she's like, nobody believes that it did that, but it did. And my cousin Jason just turned around and was like, and as I'm screaming and running through the cornfields, and I get lost, and all they can hear is my voice, and they come and find me. She's like, I could have swore that I saw this weird cloaked figure like running through the cornfield, paralleling me. And right when it was getting closer to me, Jason and Randy find me and get me out of there. And so, yeah, that's the story. And he was like, holy crap. So they never did really figure out what that cloaked figure was or why that Scarecrow would sometimes become animated. But it's interesting that this guy, Shannon, he listens to PRT, and thank you for being a listener of PRT. And he heard the episode we did about the Scarecrow. One of them, I think there was two that we've done. One of them was a boy who was staying at a farmhouse. I don't think it was Nebraska, though. It was like Indiana or something like that. I'm trying to remember where it was at. Or Kansas. It was something like that. I don't think it was Nebraska. But anyway, he was staying at his grandparents' house, and he woke up one of the things that happened, I remember, he woke up. I think it was on a Halloween episode, and there was actually straw in his bed. Yeah, I remember that story. Yeah, I remember that guy's story. And there was some other weird stuff about that house too, that haunted house that they lived in. But yeah, that's the story of the Scarecrow. So thank you for tuning in to Paranormal Roundtable. Thank you for listening. Anybody got any, well, I guess before I leave, anybody got any opinions or words about it?
Sure is creepy.
Honestly, sounded like they were bothering this guy's, walk around time. So the other Scarecrow had to come around and be like, "Hey, man, it's 12 o'clock at night. You guys gotta get going because we gotta patrol our field."
And we got.
But where'd the other Scarecrow get a flashlight?
Exactly. That's a question I did ask Shannon, and I said, "Are you sure it was a flashlight?" He goes, "Well, it was awfully bright to be a flashlight."
Don't look into the deadlights.
And the thing is, too, if it's shining directly in your face like that, that's something that a flashlight really does because it's a directional light. So, that's what makes me weird about it because, if you were just looking at a bright light in a distance, you would be able to tell the difference, I would think. But like something that's coming at you and actually shining you in the eye, then
was it a person that was doing it? And if it was, who was it?
I don't
Because
think it was a
wasn't any of
person.
their relatives.
I think it's that other Scarecrow. I just don't know why it would do that. And even like running parallel was
his cousin.
Yeah. Like I don't understand that.
And there were 3 Scarecrows in that field, and then one on the other field. Down by a pond, but that one they never really had any problems with. They would fish and they would just be there. And then the other one that was out kind of off by itself, they said it was further to the west. That one they never had problems with. But the one with the cloak, they always kind of had creepy feelings about it. And
I think when you give human characteristics in it to inanimate objects, weird things happen.
Could it be like a tulpa?
That's what I was thinking.
Something that steps in and basically fulfills the fears within the human subconscious. Because like we're actually like deeply uncomfortable with things that look almost human.
Yeah. I mean, think of the fear of the vampire. That's an innate fear that children have. It's this, when you ask children what scares them the most, it's a vampire.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I'm not even joking. I was reading a study that was done, and it was like, I'm trying to remember I think it was an Australian study, and I think that's what it was, and they were talking about children being terrified of something that looks human, but it's not.
Oh, it's, what is it called? Uncanny Valley? Basically, that's what it is. It's things that look mostly human, but there's like little aspects that aren't human. So it's like a lot of the AI videos where, like, you remember how they first came out and it was just not correct.
Stuff was off.
Was off. Like, people found those pretty creepy.
6 fingers was very prevalent.
Mm-hmm. Well, even just like things in the face where like the eyes don't match up, or like the mouth might be angled a little weird for a smile or something. Like things like that just creep people out because we're programmed to recognize inhuman things and be like wary of it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 6 fingers is highly sus.
I think that it speaks to our past, and that there was a predator that looked like us, but that it was not us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why the Indians did the How, where they would show that they had 5 fingers.
Well, yeah, because they were dealing with the giants. They were cannibalistic.
Yeah. 6-fingered entities.
Well, that's it for tonight, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for making PRT what it is. Good night.